Let's get the film version out of the way first. Nobody sits in a dark room typing furiously while a progress bar fills and then announces that they are in. That is not what this looks like. A real intrusion is slow, patient, boring, and methodical, and it almost always begins with something completely ordinary. A phone call. A password somebody reused. A server that nobody got round to patching. And here is the sentence that reframes this entire subject. Most successful attackers are not breaking anything at all. They are logging in. They are using a real account, with a real password, through the front door you built for your own staff. In this video I am going to walk you through how an actual intrusion unfolds, stage by stage, and what genuinely stops it at each one. This is a defender's walkthrough. Concepts and countermeasures, no tools, and no recipes. Almost every serious intrusion moves through 6 stages. Reconnaissance. Initial access. Foothold and persistence. Privilege escalation. Lateral movement. And finally the objective, whatever the attacker actually came for. Defenders think in these stages because it changes the question. You stop asking whether you can be attacked, which you can, and start asking how far an attacker gets before something stops them. Stage 1. Reconnaissance. And the striking thing about this stage is that essentially all of it is legal, public, and completely invisible to you. Start with your own job adverts. A recruitment post says, must have 5 years of experience with this database, this framework, this cloud platform, and this particular monitoring product. You wrote that to attract candidates. You also published a precise inventory of your infrastructure. An attacker now knows what you run, and can go and read the list of known vulnerabilities for exactly those products. Then everything else. Professional networking sites give up your org chart, which tells an attacker exactly who reports to whom, and therefore who a junior employee would never question. Public domain records reveal your mail servers, your remote access endpoints, and the subdomain somebody spun up for a project in 2021 and never turned off. Public breach collections tell an attacker which of your staff email addresses have already appeared in someone else's leak. And your engineers' conference talks helpfully explain your architecture. The defense is not secrecy, because you cannot publish any of this. The defense is to assume it is all known and design accordingly. Audit what you expose. Hunt down and switch off the forgotten subdomains and the dormant accounts, because a machine nobody remembers is a machine nobody patches. And build so that knowing your technology stack does not, on its own, get anybody anywhere. First question, and I want you to actually go and do this one. Open your own organization's public job listings, or your university's, and count how many specific product names and version numbers you can find. Pause the video and go and count. Most people are surprised. Put the number in the comments. Stage 2. Initial access. And despite everything you read, there are really only 3 doors into an organization. A person. A password. Or an unpatched machine facing the internet. And we do not have to guess at the proportions, because incident responders publish what they find. Mandiant's 2026 report, covering investigations in 2025, puts exploitation of a vulnerability as the leading entry point at 32%. That has now been the top vector 6 years running. Second place, and this is the surprise, is voice phishing at 11%, which has surged, while email phishing has fallen well down the list. Door 1 is a person, and the Twitter breach of July 2020 is the cleanest example ever documented. Attackers simply telephoned employees, claimed to be the company's own IT help desk, and said they were resolving a problem with the remote access system. They directed the employee to a login page that looked exactly right. As the employee typed their credentials into the fake page, the attackers typed those same credentials into the real one, in real time. What that bought them was 130 accounts targeted, 45 tweeted from, and the private messages of 36 of them read. Among them some of the most scrutinized accounts on the planet. There was no clever malicious software involved. There was a telephone, a convincing manner, and an employee who had no reason to think the help desk would lie to them. And this is exactly why voice phishing has climbed the table. We have spent 15 years building filters that quarantine suspicious email, banners that warn about external senders, and training that teaches people to hover over links. None of that machinery exists on a phone call. A call is live, so there is no time to reflect. It is social, so refusing feels rude, and attackers exploit politeness far more than they exploit technology. And it leaves no artifact for a scanner to inspect. Door 2 is a password. People reuse them, and attackers know it. A leak from some unrelated forum a decade ago gives an attacker a list of email addresses and passwords, and they simply try those combinations against corporate remote access, mail, and cloud consoles. Nothing is exploited. Nothing is broken. From your logs it is an employee signing in. Door 3 is the biggest one. A vulnerability in a widely used product becomes public. Within hours, automated scanning is sweeping the internet for every unpatched instance of it, indiscriminately, and yours is either on that list or it is not. This is why patching speed is not an IT housekeeping chore. It is a frontline security control, and the interval between disclosure and your patch is a window that is measured by somebody. The defenses here are unglamorous and they work. Use phishing-resistant multi-factor authentication, meaning hardware security keys, which cannot be relayed to a fake site the way a typed code can. Give everyone a password manager so that nothing is ever reused. Set a hard deadline for patching anything exposed to the internet, measured in days. And build a culture where hanging up and calling the help desk back on a number you already had is always acceptable behavior, never rudeness. One warning, because multi-factor authentication is sold as a magic shield and it is not. If your second factor is a push notification that says approve or deny, an attacker with a valid password can simply send 50 of them at 2 in the morning until somebody taps approve to make it stop. It has a name, push fatigue, and it works. Use number matching, where you must type a number shown on the screen, or better, hardware keys. Stage 3. The attacker is in. And here is the thing that surprises people, their next move is not to go looking for your data. Their first priority is to make sure they cannot be evicted by accident. Access that disappears when a laptop reboots, or when the user changes their password next month, is not really access. So the immediate work is persistence, establishing several independent ways back in, so that closing one changes nothing. And the modern way to do this is called living off the land, which is a genuinely elegant idea from the attacker's side. Instead of installing unusual software that antivirus might flag, they use the legitimate administration tools that are already installed on your systems, because your own administrators need them. Your monitoring is watching for strange software appearing. No strange software appears. Everything it sees is a normal tool doing a normal thing, run by a valid account. Which forces a completely different defensive posture. You cannot catch malicious software that is never installed. You have to catch legitimate tools being used in illegitimate patterns. An administration tool running on a receptionist's laptop at 3 in the morning. An account that has never touched the finance server suddenly reading all of it. That means you need a baseline. You have to know what normal looks like on your network before you can possibly recognize abnormal. One practical point that is chronically neglected. Almost everyone monitors and filters what comes into their network, and almost nobody watches what leaves it. But an attacker inside your network has to communicate outwards to receive instructions and to send anything back. Controlling and alerting on outbound traffic catches things that no amount of inbound filtering ever will. Second question, and be honest with yourself. If an account in your organization logged in at 3 in the morning, from an ordinary office address, and used an ordinary administration tool to read a share it had never opened before, would anything notice? Would anything alert? Pause and think about it, then tell me in the comments, because the honest answer for most organizations is no. Stage 4. Our attacker has a foothold, but they are somebody ordinary. A marketing account, or a contractor. Now they need to become somebody important. And the routes upward are almost never exotic. They are the accumulated shortcuts of ordinary working life. Accounts that hold far more rights than the job needs, because it was easier to grant them than to work out the minimum. Service accounts made administrators to make something work on a deadline in 2019. Credentials committed into a code repository years ago and still valid. Permissions configured on day one and never reviewed since. The one that causes the most damage is secrets in source control, and it is worth being precise about why. If a key is committed once, it lives in the repository history permanently. Deleting the line in a later commit removes it from the current files and leaves it fully readable in the history to anybody who can clone. So if a credential has ever been committed, the only real remedy is to rotate it. Deleting it is theater. Defenses. Least privilege, and crucially, reviewed on a schedule rather than decided once at setup, because permissions only ever accumulate. Administrators should have a separate account for administrative work and an ordinary one for reading email, so that a compromised browser session does not hand over the kingdom. Run automated secret scanning in your build pipeline so a committed key is caught in minutes. And ask, repeatedly, who still needs this access, because the honest answer is usually fewer people than have it. Stage 5, lateral movement, and this is where a small incident becomes a catastrophe. Most networks, still, are flat. Enormous effort goes into the perimeter, and then inside it everything trusts everything else. One compromised laptop in a branch office can reach the file server, the finance database, the backup system, and quite often the building's air conditioning controls. This is also why supply chain compromise works so well. Attackers do not need to breach you at all if they can breach a supplier who has legitimate access to your systems. A maintenance contractor, a software vendor, a billing provider. Their credentials are real, their access is authorized, and the trust you extended to them is now extended to whoever is using their account. Which gives you the single most useful reframing in security. Stop asking whether someone can get in, because given enough time and enough employees, someone can. Ask instead, when someone gets in, what can they reach? That question leads directly to the right architecture. The answer is segmentation and zero trust. Segmentation means the finance network cannot reach the engineering network, and neither of them can reach the building systems, so a compromise is contained to one zone rather than spreading. Zero trust means exactly what the name says, being inside the network is not evidence of anything. Every request gets authenticated and authorized on its own merits, every time, no matter where it comes from. Stage 6. Finally, the attacker does the thing they came to do, and it is usually one of two things. Option A is quiet theft. The data is gathered into one place, compressed, and moved out gradually, deliberately shaped to resemble ordinary business traffic. There is no alarm, no ransom note, and no dramatic moment. Many organizations that have suffered this never find out at all, and learn about it only when a third party tells them, or when the data appears somewhere public. Option B is ransomware, and I want you to notice the order of operations, because it is the detail that decides whether you survive. They find your backups first. They destroy or encrypt those. Only then do they encrypt everything else, and only then does the note appear. By the time you know you are under attack, the thing you were relying on to recover has already been dealt with. Your recovery capability is the primary target, not an afterthought. Which gives you the backup rule. A backup only counts if it is offline or immutable, meaning it cannot be reached or altered from the network holding the live data, and if you have actually restored from it. Not verified that the file exists. Restored. Because failed restores are extremely common, and the moment you discover your backup does not work should not be the morning after. An untested backup is not a backup. It is a hope. Now, how long is all of this going on before anyone notices? The measure is called dwell time, and the 2025 figures are these. The global median was 14 days. Organizations that found the intrusion themselves took about 9 days. Organizations told by somebody else, a bank, a customer, or law enforcement, took 25. And espionage-style intrusions, the patient ones, sat undetected for a median of 122 days. For months. And here is the statistic that best explains the modern threat, and it genuinely startled me. The median time between someone gaining initial access and handing that access off to a different criminal group was more than 8 hours in 2022. In 2025 it was 22 seconds. Breaking in and monetizing it have become two separate businesses with an efficient market between them. The person who phishes your employee is very often not the person who will encrypt your servers, and the handover now takes less time than reading this slide. Third question. Your organization's backups run every night and report success every morning. When did a human being last actually restore from one? Not check the log. Restore. Pause the video, and if you do not know the answer, that is the answer. So let me end with what actually works, ranked by what it genuinely buys you rather than what it costs. 1. Phishing-resistant multi-factor authentication everywhere, which alone removes the largest category of credential attacks. 2. Patch anything facing the internet fast, because that is the top entry point 6 years running. 3. Backups that are offline and that you have restored from. 4. Least privilege, reviewed on a schedule. 5. Segmentation, so one compromise is not total. 6. Know what normal looks like and watch what leaves your network. 7. And it is free, make verifying a request socially normal rather than insulting. And the thing I most want you to take away is this. The people doing this are, with rare exceptions, not geniuses. They are patient, well-organized, and increasingly they are running a business with a division of labor. The asymmetry is not intelligence. It is that they need to find one door left open, and you have to remember all of them, every day, forever. That is why security is a process and not a product, and why the boring controls, the patching and the reviews and the restore tests are the ones that decide the outcome. So I will leave you with one honest question. If an attacker got into your organization today, how would you find out? Not whether they could get in. How you would learn about it. If the only answer is that somebody outside would eventually tell you, then you already know what to work on next. Put your answer in the comments. If this was useful, subscribe because there is more of this coming. Thanks for watching, and go and check your job adverts.